Since 1970, only 16 defensive players have been taken first overall in the NFL draft, and every single one of them was meant to become the kind of superstar that you build a team around. But more often than not, they didn't even come close. Some guys got injured, some became all-time busts, and only a few actually turned into legends. So today we're taking a look at every defensive number 1 overall pick and the real stories about what happened to all of them. Starting back in 1972, we have Walt Patulski, who won the Vince Lombardi Award in college, which is given to the best lineman in the country. The guy was an All-American who crushed it at Notre Dame and was supposed to turn things around for the Bills. To be fair, his rookie year wasn't horrible, but it also wasn't too great either. 5 sacks in 14 games played. The problem here is that he just didn't get any better. Patulski delivered that same level of mediocre production for 4 straight years in Buffalo. After the 1975 season, the Bills had seen enough and traded him to the St. Louis Cardinals for a second-round pick. That move lasted exactly 1 season, and even though he played 14 games, he didn't start a single one and had 0 sacks. Then he suffered a career-ending back injury with the Bears during minicamp, and just like that, the former Notre Dame star was done. From a late-round draft pick, sure, you're going to take the numbers that Patulski put up, but those numbers certainly didn't cut it for the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Buffalo would have been better off even taking the guy that was selected at number 2 instead, Sherman White. Some people know him as Sloth from the Goonies, but way before Hollywood, John Matuszak was causing chaos in the NFL, and not just on opposing quarterbacks. The Oilers thought that they were going to get a franchise pass rusher, but instead, they got a walking headache. Matuszak signed with Houston's World Football League team while still under his NFL contract with the Oilers, which led to a restraining order being served during an actual game by the Oilers, therefore voiding his other contract. Houston traded him after just 1 season, sending him to Kansas City for Curly Culp, which is a move that totally backfired on the Chiefs when Culp turned into a future Hall of Famer. Matuszak bounced around the league dealing with drug and alcohol problems while still managing a somewhat decent career. He finally found some stability in Oakland, winning 2 Super Bowls with them. But when you consider that Matuszak is one of only 3 guys out of the top 12 in this draft class to not make a Pro Bowl, he's a bit of a disappointing choice. His Hollywood career totally overshadowed his football days, and sadly he did pass away due to an accidental overdose at the age of 38. At 6 feet 9 inches tall, Ed Jones was supposedly too tall to play football. He was given that nickname during his first practice when his pants wouldn't fit. At the time, you couldn't blame coaches for thinking that nobody that size could move fast enough to get to the quarterback. But Jones proved everybody wrong at Tennessee State, becoming a 2-time All-American. Then when draft day came around, the Cowboys made him the first player from a historically black college ever picked number 1 overall. Jones got 6 sacks as a rookie and finished 3rd in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. By his 2nd season, he was a full-time starter, getting after quarterbacks and also doing a great job at stopping the run. In 1977, he helped Dallas win Super Bowl 12 with a 27-10 win over Denver, making himself one of the league's most feared pass rushers.
Well, I remember what a force he was in Super Bowl 12, and I felt sorry for Craig Morton.
Then at the age of 28, in what was right around his prime, Jones just walked away from football completely. He had unfinished business in boxing and went 6-0 with 5 knockouts, all on national television. He then unretired in 1980, and this is where he really became the legend that we hear about today. From 1981 through 1983, he was first-team All-Pro once and second-team All-Pro twice. By the time he retired for good at the age of 39, he had 106 sacks, 3 Pro Bowl selections, and a reputation as one of the most unique athletes ever drafted first overall. In 1976, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had never drafted anybody before. It was their very first pick in franchise history, and they went with Leroy Selmon, 2-time All-American who helped Oklahoma win back-to-back national championships. And he turned into the best player on our list so far. His rookie season unfortunately got cut short due to injuries, just 5 sacks in 8 games played. Year 2 was when Selmon exploded though, for 13 sacks in 14 games, along with 2 fumble recoveries. But his best year by far was in 1979, where he won the Defensive Player of the Year award, along with making the All-Pro first team. He was a huge part in turning the franchise around from winning only 5 games in 78 to winning 10 in 79. And from 1979 to 1984, he also made 6 straight Pro Bowls.
I've been around great players. I've been around Howie Long, I've been around Ted Hendricks, I've been around Reggie White. But of all those players I just mentioned, the best player is Leroy Selmon.
He became the face of the franchise, retiring with 78.5 sacks after 9 seasons. All that work eventually led to him being inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1995. Selmon stuck around Tampa after football as well, becoming a bank executive and later the athletic director at South Florida. Tom Cousineau was setting records all over the place at Ohio State, and the Bills grabbed him first overall in 1979 using one of the picks that they got for trading away O.J. Simpson. The second pick in 79 was also a defender, but it wasn't until pick number 4 that we got our first Hall of Famer, which was Dan Hampton. Now, Cousineau totally shocked everybody by flat out refusing to play for Buffalo. The Canadian Football League's Montreal Alouettes actually doubled the Bills' offer and Cousineau headed north. But 3 years later, he wanted back into the NFL. And since Buffalo still owned his rights, they traded him to Cleveland for multiple draft picks, including the 14th overall pick that they later used on Jim Kelly. So I guess that one worked out just fine for the Bills in the end. As for Cousineau, though, his NFL career never really lived up to the hype. He was solid, but nothing special, and eventually faded as a backup in San Francisco. His time in the league ended with 10 interceptions, 5 fumble recoveries, and 6.5 sacks. Kenneth Sims crushed it during his final year at Texas, finishing 8th in Heisman voting as a defensive player and helping the Longhorns reach 2nd in the nation. His NFL career started off pretty well with 3 sacks in just 9 games as a rookie, but injuries then destroyed everything he had going for him. He only managed 5 total games in year 2, and that pattern just kept going throughout his career. Sims played just 1 complete season in 8 years dealing with knee, leg, and back problems. By the end of his career, he tallied up 17 sacks and 5 fumble recoveries over the course of 74 games. Even though he became one of the greatest pass rushers of all time, Bruce Smith actually started out looking ordinary during his first season. He managed just 6.5 sacks, showing flashes but nothing that screamed future Hall of Famer. Smith's poor training habits and lack of focus held him back, despite his crazy athleticism. He showed up for training camp significantly overweight during his rookie year and had a love for fast food. Then his teammate Darryl Talley challenged him to get serious, and around the same time he fell in love with a college counselor who motivated him to change his entire lifestyle. Smith exploded for 15 sacks in year number 2, then made his first Pro Bowl and All-Pro first team in year 3, and never looked back. Over the next 11 seasons, there was only one single time that he failed to reach double-digit sacks along with making the Pro Bowl, and that was because he missed 11 games with an injury. Smith became the most important piece of Buffalo's defense, helping them reach 4 straight Super Bowls from 1990 to 1993. He also had 11 Pro Bowl appearances and 8 All-Pro first-team selections. Smith was forced to part ways with Buffalo near the end of his career due to salary cap issues, but by that point, his legacy was already cemented.
He's the greatest ever played. He's the GOAT of defensive linemen.
After retiring, Smith went back to Virginia Beach, working as a large-scale hotel designer and partnering up with former teammate Thurman Thomas for a solar energy business. The next guy to go number 1 overall was Andre Bruce, and scouts called him the next Lawrence Taylor. Atlanta was feeling pretty good about picking him, but in a draft with 7 Hall of Famers, this turned out to be a pretty epic disappointment. His rookie year looked pretty solid. 70 tackles, 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions over the course of 16 games. But that rookie year turned out to be his peak. The numbers pretty much dropped every season after that, from 66 tackles and 6 sacks in year number 2 down to just 40 tackles and 4 sacks by 1990. And even though he played for 11 years, he never got above 30 tackles again. Bruce eventually bounced to Oakland and switched to defensive end, but even the change of scenery and position didn't help at all. He retired with 32 career sacks, 0 Pro Bowl appearances, and the label that nobody wants, a draft bust. Moving on to 1991, we have Russell Maryland, who came from Miami with 2 national championships under his belt and a reputation as the perfect defensive tackle. He was big, strong, and surprisingly quick for his size. Dallas got solid production right from the start, as Maryland put up 4.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles as a rookie, finishing tied for 4th in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. And he also became a key piece of the Cowboys' championship dynasty run, winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. After that 3rd Super Bowl, he became a free agent. He signed with the Raiders and eventually played for the Packers as well. But individually, Maryland never hit the heights that you would expect from a #1 pick. His only Pro Bowl came in 1993, and he was more of a good player than a superstar. We didn't have to wait too long for another defensive player to go first overall. Steve Emtman went the very next year and looked like a beast in college. An All-American who won the Outland Trophy and Vince Lombardi Award in 1991 as part of Washington's undefeated national championship team. He even finished 4th in Heisman voting as a defensive player, which is very impressive. In his rookie year, Emtman returned a 90-yard interception as time expired against Miami, sealing a massive upset win. And he also had 49 tackles along with 3 sacks in 9 games that first season.
That big play. Intercepted. Look at him go. Emtman has it. This is Steve Emtman at 6'4", 290 pounds.
But the flaw in Emtman's game was something that he couldn't control: injuries. 9 games into his rookie year, he blew out his left knee, tore his right patella tendon the following year, and later suffered a ruptured disc in his neck. He bounced between 3 teams over 6 seasons before eventually retiring. Moving on to 1994, and for the 3rd time in 4 years, we had a defensive lineman go first overall. Dan Wilkinson had a lot of hype. Some people were even calling him the best defensive lineman prospect since Reggie White. But when you get drafted before Marshall Faulk, you better be very good. The crazy thing is, he didn't even start out as a defensive player. He went from an offensive tackle to a pass rushing machine who ran a 4.72 second 40-yard dash time. So you can see exactly why teams were so high on him.
We think we know who the first pick is. Young man named Dan Wilkinson, defensive tackle extraordinaire.
He put up 5.5 sacks and 44 tackles as a rookie, followed by 8 sacks in his 2nd season despite missing 2 games. For an interior lineman, those were pretty good numbers. Wilkinson played 13 good seasons across 4 teams, but when you think of first overall draft picks, you really want to find those guys like Warren Sapp or Aaron Donald. He did have a solid career, but he just didn't give you the game-changing impact that you were hoping for. In 2000, 1 season after returning to the NFL and to Cleveland, the Browns ended up with the 1st overall pick for the 2nd year in a row. And they went with the guy who broke the Penn State record with 33 career sacks. At his pro day, Courtney Brown looked like a monster in a good way, of course. 6 feet 5 inches tall, 270 pounds, running a 4.5 second 40 and benching 225 pounds 26 times. The Browns passed on Brian Urlacher, LeVar Arrington, and Jamal Lewis to make him their franchise guy. That turned out to be a decision, let's just say that. His rookie year showed some promise with 69 tackles and 4.5 sacks, finishing 4th in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting.
Graham, and he is ambushed. Courtney Brown again.
But injuries just wrecked everything after that. I mean, he only played 61 games in 6 years, which is not ideal. He did have 1 decent comeback year in 2003 with 6 sacks, but his body just couldn't hold up. Before long, he was done, and he became yet another Cleveland draft bust in a long line of them. But in 2006, we finally got a guy who lived up to the hype, even if it wasn't the pick that every Texans fan wanted at the time. Everybody expected Houston to take either Reggie Bush or Vince Young with the 1st pick. Instead, they went with a defensive player. Mario Williams had set the school sack record in just 3 seasons at NC State, but he looked like a reach compared to the flashy skill position players available in this draft class. The criticism got even louder after his rookie year. 4.5 sacks and 47 tackles in 16 games felt very underwhelming for a guy getting paid $54 million over the course of 6 years. But Houston's gamble started to pay off in year 2. Williams exploded for 14 sacks in 2007, earning 2nd-team All-Pro honors and even a vote for Defensive Player of the Year. In 2012, he signed a 6-year, $96 million deal, which made him the highest-paid defensive player in NFL history at that point.
It presents challenges for, I think, every offensive tackle in the league.
He's a freak, and that's the bottom line.
Meanwhile, you had Reggie Bush and Vince Young, the quote-unquote can't-miss guys that Houston passed on. They ended up dealing with injuries and inconsistency throughout their careers and never lived up to their own insane draft hype. Williams ended up retiring with 97.5 career sacks and 4 Pro Bowl appearances, becoming the second most productive pass rusher in Texans history behind only J.J. Watt. Okay, now this is a big one because out of all the guys on this list today, Jadeveon Clowney might have been the most hyped up out of everybody. He was a 6'5" genetic freak who ran an 11.43 second 100-meter dash time as a track sprinter while also throwing discus and shot put on the side. As a sophomore at South Carolina, he set school records with 13 sacks and 24 tackles for a loss, becoming the scariest defender in all of college football.
Wow. Michigan at the 41. What a hit! Ball's free on the ground. South Carolina deserves to have it, and they do.
The hype was absolutely massive heading into the 2014 draft, and Houston just couldn't wait to turn their prize pick loose on opposing quarterbacks. Then disaster hit. Clowney played just 4 games as a rookie, getting 7 tackles and 0 sacks before injury shut him down. Year 2 was more of the same. 13 games, 4.5 sacks, and continued worries about whether he could stay healthy or not. But Clowney finally found his groove from 2016 to 2018, earning 3 straight Pro Bowl selections with the Texans.
He has speed, power, and quickness, so he has really all 3. That's extremely rare for a guy of his size to be able to do that.
He never really hit the insane superstar level that everybody predicted though, topping out at 9.5 sacks in a season and failing to produce big numbers ever since that 2018 season. After leaving Houston, Clowney basically became a journeyman, bouncing between Seattle, Tennessee, Cleveland, Baltimore, and even Carolina. Earlier this year, the Panthers released him, so it's unclear if he's going to be playing anywhere in 2025. But one thing that we can all agree on, in 2017, Cleveland finally got it right. After literally decades of draft day disasters, Myles Garrett became the first defensive player since Reggie White who turned into the kind of monster that every team would draft if they had this pick over again. Garrett broke Jadeveon Clowney's SEC freshman sack record and then the very next year led the conference in sacks as a sophomore. Even playing through a high ankle sprain as a junior, he still had 8.5 sacks. Scouts were calling this guy a once-in-a-decade talent who was NFL ready from day one. His rookie year, he had 7 sacks in 11 games, but in year number 2, Garrett blew up. He had 13.5 sacks, made his first Pro Bowl, and earned second-team All-Pro honors. And that was just the beginning. From 2020 through 2024, he's been either first or second team All-Pro every single season and won Defensive Player of the Year in 2023.
What did he look like on film when you're studying?
A superhuman freak.
He's had double-digit sacks in 7 of his 8 seasons so far, over 100 career sacks already, and is playing at a Hall of Fame pace. And he's so athletic that he's not just a weapon rushing the passer.
He jumped right over the center. Man. He went Superman. How athletic is this guy?
While other first overall picks have bounced around the league or flamed out entirely, Garrett has become exactly the player that the Browns have been looking for. And the most recent defensive player to go first overall is Travon Walker out of Georgia. He had incredible size and speed and won the Natty in 2021. He was picked number 1 overall because of his athleticism that you just can't teach. Jacksonville saw the potential, and every now and again, he shows off that athleticism.
And Wentz goes back at it, and it's intercepted in a crowd. Oh, it's Travon Walker in his first NFL game.
But his rookie season with 3.5 sacks in 15 games felt pretty disappointing, especially when Aiden Hutchinson was tearing it up in Detroit after going 2nd overall. But Walker's development has been encouraging. He hit 10 sacks in 2023 and 10.5 in 2024, becoming just the 2nd Jaguar ever to put up back-to-back double-digit sack seasons alongside Calais Campbell. When you watch him play, he's obviously an elite run stopper as well. The Jags picked up Walker's 5th-year option in April of this year, so they obviously like the signs. It's going to be interesting to see if that pays off this season, especially with their newly renovated roster on offense. So at the end of the day, out of 16 defensive players that were drafted first overall since 1970, only about 4 or 5 really lived up to the hype. And this really doesn't get talked about enough. Most of the time when you think of draft busts, it's going to be a quarterback. Just goes to show you, it's not just guys like Jamarcus Russell who can be huge disappointments. But if you thought these defensive picks were unpredictable, wait until you see what happened to these number 1 quarterback selections.